Dillian Whyte has fought almost everyone in the heavyweight division, yet somehow Dillian Whyte feels he does not get enough credit. In a recent sit-down interview with Ade Oladipo, Dillian Whyte claims that he does not get enough credit from the boxing community. So in this video, I am going to analyze Dillian Whyte's wins and losses to determine if he indeed deserves more credit in boxing. Before we do that, if you have not subscribed to this channel yet, then don't forget to support, hit the like button, subscribe and leave your comments in the section below. The Anthony Joshua fight. This is a fight that put Dillian Whyte on a map. Although Dillian Whyte lost this fight, Joshua was a rising star, and therefore Dillian Whyte was always going to benefit from the hype Joshua was getting, even if he lost or he won this fight. And Joshua seemed to be the better fighter on the night, of course, knocking Dillian Whyte out in a devastating fashion. But what it did for him is that it boosted his notoriety in the heavyweight division. Dillian Whyte then went on to get wins against the likes of Ivica Bakurin, Dave Allen, Ian Lewison, and then the Derek Chisora first fight. Now, this is a very interesting fight, and I think this is one of the best British boxing fights I have ever seen, because this was a fight between two guys that knew nothing but to come forward and to throw bombs. And I think Dillian Whyte gave a very good account of himself. He was determined, he was dogged. Derek Chisora at that time had more experience than Dillian Whyte, but Dillian Whyte, I think, did really well in terms of staying in the fight, being competitive in the fight, and giving Derek Chisora a lot of troubles in the fight. Now, a lot of people will actually argue that Derek Chisora won the fight, and although Dillian Whyte got the decision in that fight, I felt that he did enough to get the win. Dillian Whyte then went on to get wins against the likes of Malcolm Tan and Robert Helenius, and then the Lucas Browne fight. This is a fight that I think Dillian Whyte's money punch, the left hook, was born or was formed, and this is where a lot of people started giving Dillian Whyte a lot of credit after his win against Lucas Browne, because this was a fight that Dillian Whyte showed that he's learned from the loss against Anthony Joshua, and that he can go on to dominate a fight and win in a devastating fashion. And of course, we saw in that fight, Dillian dominated Lucas Browne. Dillian showed that he was class above Lucas Browne, and Dillian knocked Lucas Browne out with a devastating left hook, one of the most incredible left hook I have seen landed in a British ring, and that was an emphatic win for Dillian Whyte. And I think Dillian Whyte got a lot of credit for that fight, because people started noticing him and people started to give Dillian Whyte a lot of credit for that win. Dillian Whyte then went on to fight Joseph Parker. Now, if you have been following this channel for a while, you would know that I give Joseph Parker a lot of credit because he's an ex-champion. I think Joseph Parker is a very good fighter. I think he can hang with the best in the division. I had picked Joseph Parker to beat Dillian Whyte in this fight, but Dillian Whyte proved me wrong in this fight. He was competitive in the fight. He gave Joseph Parker a lot of problems. His left hook was deadly in that fight, dropping Joseph Parker, I believe, in that fight. Parker got up. Dillian was on his way to win this fight. He faced some adversities in the latter rounds of that fight, but I think Dillian showed that he's a fighter that will always find a way to win. And in that Joseph Parker fight, in the last few rounds in that fight, Parker came on top, and Parker was looking to take the lead away from Dillian Whyte. And Dillian did everything he could. He was dogged, he was determined, he was motivated, he wanted to win that so bad. And if you compare Dillian Whyte versus Joseph Parker, Dillian Whyte should not be beating Joseph Parker, because Dillian Whyte does not have much amateur background. Joseph Parker is decorated amateur. He's a former world champion. Dillian Whyte was just facing the odds, and Dillian Whyte was able to beat Joseph Parker. Now, there was a lot of criticism for Joseph Parker in that fight, because Parker was someone that is not very aggressive, or was not very aggressive during this time of his career, and therefore Dillian Whyte, being very aggressive, being very in-your-face type of character, was able to wrestle the win from Joseph Parker's hands in that fight and become victorious. Now, this fight, a lot of people gave Dillian Whyte credit. I gave Dillian Whyte credit for this fight because I didn't expect him to win and to beat someone like Joseph Parker, who actually gave a very good account of himself in the Anthony Joshua fight before fighting Dillian Whyte. So I saw a lot of people give Dillian Whyte credit for that fight. And then the Derek Chisora rematch. Once again, one of the best fights I have seen in a British boxing ring. Derek Chisora and Dillian Whyte both put on a fantastic performance. In this fight though, I think Derek Chisora was on top in this fight. I think Derek did the much cleaner work. I think Derek put a lot of pressure on Dillian Whyte. Derek at some point rushed his work and got a point deducted. Knowing that he was behind on the scorecard, Derek Chisora then tried to get Dillian Whyte in the latter rounds, and as a result of that, he got caught with one of the most devastating left hook. Dillian Whyte's trademark punch, the left hook, which rendered Derek Chisora unconscious in the 11th round. And Dillian Whyte got a lot of credit for this fight, because this was a fight that, as I said, a lot of people were saying that Derek Chisora was on top, including myself, and Dillian had to find that punch from somewhere in the fight that he was losing. He was dogged, he was motivated, he wanted to win, and it showed that Dillian at that point was probably the better fighter in terms of finding a way to win against Derek Chisora, and I think he got a lot of credit for that fight. And then the Alexander Povkin fight. Now, this is where I believe Dillian Whyte's decline started, because Dillian Whyte was on top in this fight. Now, if you guys would remember, in the Anthony Joshua fight, Dillian Whyte was susceptible to that uppercut, which is the uppercut that ultimately Anthony Joshua landed and rendered Dillian Whyte unconscious. Alexander Povkin landed some of the most accurate uppercut I have ever seen. That was an incredible shot. That was a brutal shot, and Dillian Whyte was not able to get up from that shot. Now, this is where Dillian Whyte's career turned on his head, because then all of a sudden, if you didn't know before, you were very sure that Dillian Whyte is not able to take an uppercut, and it showed in that fight. Now, Dillian Whyte got revenge over Alexander Povkin a few months later, but then Povkin was not the same fighter that he was a few months before, and Dillian got the win, and he looked good getting the win. But I don't think that a lot of people gave Dillian Whyte a lot of credit for that fight, because once again, people thought he was only fighting a Povkin that was over the hill. The Tyson Fury fight was very disappointing for Dillian Whyte. I thought Dillian Whyte was going to be aggressive in the presser. I thought Dillian Whyte was going to show Tyson Fury that he's up for it. But in turn, Dillian Whyte was really dejected. He was not motivated. In the press conference, he allowed Tyson Fury to get into his head. He wasn't the Dillian Whyte that we all knew. And it just felt that Dillian Whyte was in this fight to take the paycheck instead of looking to win against Tyson Fury. And on the night, it proved to be that Tyson Fury dominated Dillian Whyte from start to finish, and then ultimately landed the uppercut that ended the fight at Wembley. And of course, Dillian Whyte was never going to get credit for losing to Tyson Fury. Dillian Whyte then went on to win against Jermaine Franklin, Christian Hamer, Ebenezer Tate, and now looking to face Mose Itauma. So look, Dillian Whyte's resume is very good. As I said in the beginning, he has fought almost everyone in the heavyweight division, and I think that he has proven that he will take on all comers, that he's not afraid to get in the ring, get stuck in and have a fight. One thing that I must mention that I believe that takes a little bit more credit away from Dillian Whyte is the fact that he failed the drugs test against Oscar Rivas, and then when he had the opportunity to fight Anthony Joshua for the rematch, he then failed another drugs test. So I think somehow, some way, this is where Dillian Whyte probably does not get all the credit he deserves because of the failed PD test. But on the face value, if you look at Dillian Whyte's resume and the fighters that he's fought and the losses that he's had and the things that he's done in the division, Dillian Whyte probably deserves more credit than he's getting at the moment in boxing. And maybe someday when he retires is when a lot of people will probably give him more credit than they are doing right now. What do you think? Get in the comment section and let me know. Does Dillian Whyte deserves more credit than he's getting at the moment? Or do you think Dillian Whyte is just getting enough credit for the body of work that he has put in place? My name is Bright. This is the Bright Show Podcast Boxing. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next one.